So, good evening. We are back to the study of the Spirit's book. We are on book 3 of the Spirit's book on chapter 10, Law of Freedom. Is a very interesting philosophical chapter that gives us the opportunity of reflect and discuss some aspects of Spiritism. Okay, so Philip, can you start for us?
Natural freedom, 825. Are there any positions in the world where an individual enjoys absolute freedom? No, because all of you need one another, from the most powerful to the impoverished.
Okay, so absolute freedom means that you have no responsibility towards anyone else. You are isolated. So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, right, if you are isolated in a deserted island, right, you're all by yourself, you have absolute freedom. You can do whatever you want. You have no responsibility with anyone but with yourself. So there is no ethical responsibilities, but there are moral responsibilities, right? Because ethics is a thing that it's external to us, right? So if it's ethical to to commit adultery in a group of people, you may respect the community, but morally you may be against it. Okay, so you are going to follow your moral instincts, right? So you are in an island by yourself. If you are a person that likes nature and respects nature, you are not going to destroy nature because morally you think it's wrong, right? But there is no regulation, ethical regulations that society imposes you to respect nature, right?
Okay, so may I
Yes.
just clarify? So
Loud.
you're actually saying that ethical is much more, that moral is much more from the inner
Yes.
kind of world, and the ethical deals much more with the external world.
In your interaction with those around you, yes. So ethics is something that it's changes from group to group, country to country, and as we evolve, our ethics evolve also. Our moral evolves also, but moral is something that is individual according to your own conscience, and we are going to talk a little bit later about conscience and thought and the difference between those two. Okay.
Quick question.
Go ahead, Philip.
What about the environment in terms of other animals and other species? Where do they fit?
On the moral aspect is an individual responsibility, right? If you think that morally, on your own thoughts, is morally wrong to destroy, to kill animals, or to do anything again, you are not going to do it, not because anyone else tell you to do or not, but because your moral conscience tells you not to do it. Now, in India, you don't eat. It's a religious belief that you don't eat cows, right? So it is religious, ethical religious. It comes from a religion. It's the moral aspect you follow because the society tells you to follow it, but you may morally don't agree with it, and you keep your own thoughts to yourself.
Yeah, so my concern here is, how do we treat other animals, species, plants, and so forth in terms of, did Jesus say anything about outside of humanity? How we treat other living things?
With respect and care, but if I remember correctly, I don't know any words of Jesus in relation to animals or nature. Do you remember it? Yeah. What Jesus told us is to love one another, and to love one another, you can expand to anything you want, right? You can expand to animals, you can expand to nature, because Chico Xavier used to treat the animals like they were little brothers and little sisters, right? But he ate meat. So, you know, he understood the purpose of the necessity of eating meat for himself, again, but he treated animals like brothers and sisters, including ants and cockroaches. He wouldn't kill any animal just for the sake of killing. He would accept killing them to feed yourself. So again, it's a personal moral conscious that changes with time, because now we are discussing this. 500 years ago or 100 years ago, I don't know, that was not a subject for discussion. Nobody cared about it, or most people, the vast majority, didn't care. Now we have a representative minority that cares about it and brings to the forefront of discussion. So this is a sign of evolution, because it is something that we have to be aware of and take care of, right? We are taking care of the planet much better than we were. We are still destroying it, but we're trying to save it more than we were 50 years ago. And animals, the same thing. We are treating animals much more humanly. The majority, again, we're talking about society as a whole. There are exceptions on everything, right? There are exceptions also amongst humans that do not respect other humans, right? So, but we are talking about general, right? Okay, Philip?
Okay,
Don't you think
Number-
moral can be sometimes crash with the cultural?
Uh,
I think
the
it's both.
the moral, the thing is, society can influence you to change your moral views, because it's evolving, right? So maybe in 3 incarnations ago, I thought it was perfectly fine to betray my wife. I had no moral problems with that. And now I don't think it's morally right. So it changed. Did society change with it? Not completely, but there is a large part of society that changed also. Culturally, yes. So we live in society, so we are influenced by society. But for instance, let's talk about death penalty, right? The majority of Americans are in favor of the death penalty, more than 50%, not much, but more than 50%. Yeah. I think morally, in my opinion, for what I know, it's wrong. So I can live in a country that has death penalty, but for me, I won't accept it. And if I go into a juror, I'm called into the juror that one possibility is death penalty, I'm going to be very clear that I'm never going to vote in favor of the death penalty. I can be discussing there to the end of the days, right? So that's the moral conscience, and different from the cultural of the society as a whole.
But sometimes you can be yourself, like even being in an environment that you are against something, but yourself, like the nature, for example, you don't kill the animal.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people, they live in an environment, they kill the animal, but that person doesn't kill because in their
Their beliefs, their own beliefs,
their point of view.
yeah.
he doesn't kill because he is wrong, so. But that's moral, that's himself, that's the.
That's the moral is individual.
Yeah.
It's individual, it's each one, yeah.
So the way how you are talking, I think sometimes crash the cultural and the.
Yes, we are never going to be 100% in agreement with everything that happens around us. You know, people that do not eat meat, for instance, they live in a society where the majority of people eat meat and see no problem in that. But it's your personal choice because you think it's morally wrong. It's your own personal decision. Okay, and again, it's your own conscience that is going to judge you in the end, right? So whenever you go against what you morally believe is right, you are creating guilty on yourself that is going to come back and haunt you later, either here or on the other side, right? Because in the end, you are judging against your own conscience.
Yeah. It's sometimes very awkward to.
Yeah. I told
The way
you,
how you see it.
today is very philosophical. We're going to,
In conflict with
Yeah.
I'm trying to,
I don't think. Oh, go ahead.
I'll try to marriage this discussion with the topic of freedom. How do you put this together, your cultural clashing with your moral and the discussion of freedom here? I'm a little bit confused.
we're going to have to go in the later, not next one, but the other one, freedom of thought and freedom of conscience, that we are going to address a little bit more, which is, you know, I had to do a little bit of research, the difference between thought and conscience. So, but we'll get there. Now we're talking about freedom here in terms of in relation to society.
I just think when you said some about the India, the example,
Yeah.
some people don't, they eat cow, but the other ones, actually they don't eat, but some of them, they could eat, but they don't eat because the knowledge that.
Society doesn't allow it, yeah. Yeah, you know, it's again, you don't need to go to the India, you go to the Jewish community here, right? That they have the kosher meals, right? That separate things. And again, some of them do because they believe, and some of them do because it's culturally what they have to do in being a Jewish, not because they really believe in that. So you're following what it is.
That's why it interests me, you mentioned this kind of religious society, because I work with people, and then I'll talk about it more and
Ethical.
yeah, it's so interesting.
Yeah.
You know, because I work with people and I see the rules is here and but they behave.
Yeah, then you go into a different discussion, which is the external actions against the internal, and then it's you, yeah, you can have a lot of problems because you know you have to do a lot of external behaviors that you don't really believe inside of you, and then you have to it's an individual problem. You have to question why you were doing that, what's the purpose. But most of the people, they just follow because they have to follow and they don't question. Again, it's an individual choice in the end. But so let's go to the next one, Philip.
826. What would be the condition in which a person could enjoy absolute freedom? As a hermit in a desert, as soon as two people find each other, they have reciprocal rights and duties to respect and are no longer absolutely free.
Again, we go back to the island, what I said, you know, you are only absolute free when you have no one else.
That's a moral.
Yeah, you have your only moral conscience to guide you. But you are absolutely free. You can do whatever you want. Like Paul Tarsus say, everything is permitted, but not everything is convenient, right? And then it's a personal choice. I can do anything I want, but not everything goes according to my
Moral.
Yeah. Now, when you live in society and then it's just more than one person, you no longer have absolute freedom because I have to respect what Elmo thinks and behaves. I cannot invade his privacy, because then it becomes a problem. I cannot invade his space, let's say, right? So I don't have absolute freedom. I cannot do whatever I want if he doesn't agree with me doing whatever I want, and vice versa, right? So the concept of absolute freedom here is only if you are completely by yourself. But again, if we think of us as spirits in evolution, I'm just going to bring you a concept here. Once we are perfect spirits, we have absolute freedom. Why? Because in perfection, we would never even consider doing something
Yes, no.
that disturbs others. We are doing everything to help others. So we theoretically, and again, we don't understand a perfect spirit, is way beyond our capacity, but theoretically a perfect spirit would have absolute freedom, because they, I'm limited by what I do, because I have to respect others' space. But if I'm reached perfection, it's natural. I'll respect other space naturally. It won't be something that I have to think, because I cannot go and hit Elmo, because he's going to hit back and we're going to have a fight. So I don't have the freedom to do whatever I want. But once I'm a perfect spirit, that's not something that I even consider, right? Because a perfect spirit only works to help others, to be of assistance to others. So my understanding, and again, it's me, it's that they would have absolute freedom, right? I don't know if you agree.
I agree. I think there's perfection is to live in absolute accordance with all those laws that you are studying right now. That they are part of you. It's your second nature, as I said.
Yeah.
So that is perfection. And I have to think about it. It's part of myself.
So it's freedom, right?
Right now, I may have the impulse of hit you, but the ethics prohibit me. My moral doesn't. They still have a desire to hit you,
Mhm.
but I can do it because the ethical prohibit me to do so.
Yeah.
Right. Once I reach a higher level, this thought will never cross my mind. To have a right to hit anyone.
Exactly.
So in that perfect spirit, in that perfect spirit, the moral and the ethical kind of merge. And then the concept itself of freedom is just irrelevant.
Well, I'm not.
I'm thinking out loud, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because ethical is external, right?
The ethical
Loses.
meaning for the system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's no need to have ethical. We have laws because we need them.
Mhm.
We have laws because if you don't have the laws, we will go against those laws that are reading over here. Once we have the perfected moral, ethical loses its meaning completely.
Yeah.
Yes, meaningless.
So even so, the concept of absolute freedom is also meaningless because they're just free, like.
Yeah, that's my understanding also, but again, we don't understand if perfect spirits is still way ahead of us.
So in reality, we ignorant. We think that freedom is to not obey laws. In reality, freedom is to live in absolute harmony with the laws,
With the divine laws,
the divine laws.
exactly. Yeah,
I like that.
perfect.
I like
Yeah,
that.
exactly that. I like that also.
I like that. You're not interested in
Yeah.
the umbrella of the-
And when you talk about human laws and the evolution of human laws, right? There are human laws that become unnecessary once we evolve to a certain level, right? So we discard human laws that are no longer necessary because we respect them naturally, right? And that's how we continue evolving. So when we reach perfection, we live in absolute harmony with the natural laws, the laws of God, without any external laws needed, right? Because we wouldn't break any laws. Okay. All right, very philosophical today. I like it.
I like that.
Well, it makes us think. It's good to think. Yeah. Okay, next.
827. Does the duty to respect the rights of others deprive individuals of their right to be themselves? Not at all, because human beings hold that right by nature.
Yes, again, it's an interesting concept, right? You have the right to be yourself, but at the same time, you have to respect society you live in, right? Obey respect the laws, obey the laws, and respect the rules and regulations of the society. But you have the right to be yourself, because you know, as long as you are respecting what's around you, you are not, you shouldn't be forced to do what you don't want. And you should be free to express yourself. Again, it's a much complicated theory, and we're going to talk about this in freedom of thought and freedom of conscience. But the right to be ourselves, it's a natural law that comes with us as evolving spirits, right? Because if we cannot be pretending to be someone we are not for a long time. We can do it for a short period of time, and we all do, right? Especially when we are young and growing, and we have to look like our peers, right? But as you become older, you become more and more yourself, yeah, in peace with yourself, with restrictions. But we have the right to be ourselves by nature, by the natural laws. Okay.
828. How can we reconcile the liberal opinions of some individuals with the oppression they sometimes exercise in their own homes over their subordinates? They are familiar with the law of nature, but it is counterbalanced by their pride and selfishness. They know what should be done when they truly embrace the liberal principles, but they do not do it. Will the principles that they have professed during their life be taken into account in the next? The more intelligence that people have to understand the principle, the more inexcusable their neglect to put it into practice. I may truly tell you that those who are sincere but simple are further advanced on the divine road than those who try to appear to be what they are not.
So what the spirits are talking here on the first question is there are these individuals, and you have in the gospel a passage that talks about those that are the tyrants at home, right? That oppress their families. When they are outside their homes, they have very, they either have liberal ideas, or they submit themselves to others and do not try to impose themselves. So everything that this necessity of imposing their will, they use it at home through their, wife, children, or partners and everything. That's what the spirits are talking here. So the fact that they are outside in their home, they understand the need of respecting others or of living in society, mean that they know better. They shouldn't be using that oppression at home, right? And of course, they become more responsible. It's the second part of the question, because the more you know, the more responsible you are. That's what we always talk about in Spiritism, right? So those that know less, but try to live a simple life respecting others, they're morally evolved, but not intellectually evolved. They find themselves in better positions than those that are intellectually evolved, but not morally evolved. And we see this all the time in the books of André Luiz when he describes the spirits in the spiritual world, right? We just finished Liberation, which talks about Gregorio, which was a very intelligent spirit, but morally not very advanced, and he was the leader of the lower zones. So that's the concept that they are trying to tell us here, right? That you have, ideally, you have to behave the same way outside and inside, right? Facing society or facing your own family, you should behave the same. There shouldn't be any difference. That's a sign of someone that is evolving morally, right? Again, we are imperfect spirits, otherwise we wouldn't be here. We have a lot of imperfections, and we are not, we are not going to be able to do that 100%. But to be conscious of that and to make an effort is already what we are supposed to do with the knowledge we have. If we are not even making an effort, then it's a problem. And again, when we talk about making an effort, right, you have that special person in your family that you cannot deal with. That is impossible to deal with. You leave it aside and leave it for the next incarnation, maybe, or for when you evolve, right? But again, if all people in your family are like this, then the problem is not them, the problem is you. You have to address why, everyone bothers you. Because when everyone has a problem with you, the problem is not with everyone, the problem is with you, right? If one person has a problem with you, maybe it's that person's problem, right? And you do everything that you can. But that's what we need to evaluate, how, in general, we are behaving towards here talking about our own homes and families. Okay. All right, so next item is slavery, and we need to remember that this is 1857. Slavery was present in not in Europe, but in Africa, here in South America, in Asia. Was only Europe that didn't have slaves at that time, but so we know that slavery nowadays, we know that's not morally or ethically accepted. You still find illegal slavery in many places, right? But we're talking about legal here, legally, right? At that time, it was legal in 1857 when the spirits tells us their thoughts about slavery. Okay. Go ahead.
829.
Yeah.
Is there any portion of the human race intended by nature to be property of other human beings? The absolute oppression of any individual by another violates God's law. Slavery is an abuse of strength and gradually disappears with progress, as all other abuses will eventually disappear. The societal law that sanctions slavery is a crime against nature because it reduces human beings to the level of animals and degrades them both physically and morally.
So only with this answer, the Spiritism, at that time, had a lot of problems, right? In this country, one of the reasons that Kardec, when he tried to disseminate Spiritism in the US, didn't bring the concept of reincarnation to the forefront was because of slavery, right? Because if you told slave owners in 1857, well, it was just before the Civil War, right? That if you are a slave owner, you're going to be reincarnated as a slave next incarnation, they wouldn't accept it. They would reject it completely. So he had to leave aside the concept of reincarnation, which until today, the spiritualist movement in this country is divided. Some of them accept, some of them don't. because of slavery, right? But the spirits are very clear here. Slavery violates God's law. It's against the natural law. No one can possess another. The comment is by Kardec, right? The crime against nature reduces human beings to the level of animals. So Kardec had already the conscience that slavery was against the natural law. So again, Spiritism brings the notion way before its time, right? The equality between men and women that we studied last week, the violation of the natural law with slavery, everything that existed in the 19th century, very in the forefront of society, right? The difference of classes, the difference of races. Spiritism comes and tells that all of this, it's against the natural law. But one thing that they say here that is very important, gradually disappears with progress. That's what we need to have an understanding when we are seeing some of the things that happen in society today, right? Some of the objections to progress that we are seeing out there, different types of progress. Progress comes. It happens. It will come. Those that are against it will be left in the dust of history. What spirits are telling us here is it doesn't change abruptly. Normally, it changes gradually. So what we have to do, to have patience, resignation, and faith, right? Because it will change. We need to do what we can to make those changes. But if there is nothing we can do, we have to be patient and wait. Maybe we won't see in our present incarnation, but we will see in a future incarnation.
By the way, Martin Luther King in his speech that I'll never get to the mountaintop.
Yes, exactly.
Said that.
Yeah.
I'll never get to the mountaintop. And then he was killed.
And you see what he was fighting in the 60s, right? Most of the things are now it's illegal to discriminate, and so
Many more.
yeah. Again,
Yeah.
discrimination exists. We know we're not discussing human behavior here. We're discussing human laws.
Yeah, and more.
Yeah, it's illegal to discriminate. Now, from a human law to become something that all society respects, there is some.
Still a gap there.
Yeah, it's a way to go, right? Again, many of this, including slavery, we find slavery around the world today. Illegal slavery still exists, right? So who are the slave owners? People that have no respect for other human beings. Still exists, right? But it's illegal every time, and you see them being caught. You see the news of them being caught one time or another, right? There is this discussion of illegal immigrants' children here in the US, right, that are being used in a semi-slavery way of working, but it's being addressed. There is already a desire to fight against it, still out there. But again, human laws are made to protect, right? Once we no longer need those laws, then slavery is not going to be illegal again on human law, because it won't be necessary to have the law, because it will be natural to all human beings that slavery is not acceptable. But according to our society today, imperfect society, we still need laws to prevent slavery to happen. Okay.
And you read progress here, I think should read as moral progress of the majority,
Yes.
because there is always be isolated group that will disagree with, will not keep up with the moral progress, but hopefully they will be affected by the so-called herding effect, right? There is an isolation of people over here does not believe, they lose power because they're surrounded by those who believe in equality. So there will be those small nucleus, there will behave, as I said, every once in a while you read on the news that there is this problem with semi-slave conditions, slave conditions here and there, but we see how the public condemns and goes against it. The general population is against it. I'm sure there will be one on us, yeah, that's good, they should do this. But that is a very small minority. So when you mention progress, you're talking about moral, that will transform into ethical, that everybody will apply to it, of the great majority.
831.
Yep.
Does the natural inequality of aptitudes place some members of the human race under the control of more intelligent members? Yes, so that they may rise to a higher level, but not to further degrade them by slavery. People have too long viewed certain ethnic groups as working animals with arms and hands, and believe they have the right to use them and sell them like beasts. They think that they are of purer blood when they are really fools. Only the spirit is the marker of purity, not blood.
Okay, so here, what they're saying is the following. Of course, according to our intellectual level, there will be some that will be in a superior position than others. And that's only natural, right? When you go to a working place, you have the boss, you have the boss, the directors, and people according to their abilities, right? But what it cannot happen, and again, what they are talking here at what you have at that time is that certain groups make others work like animals, slave them, and they go a little further saying that they think of their pure blood, and they are really fools, right? Yeah, because only the spirit is the marker of purity. So the purity is in the spirit, and it's morally, and it's the moral evolution of the spirit. That's the purity that it's here, and it doesn't have any race or gender or anything like that. It's a characteristic of the eternal spirit, right? But again, living in society, there are those that are more, and we discussed this in the law of equality, right? The differences between that we all have here. Some people are more capable than others, and we will have more abilities than others. The important thing is we need different abilities for us as a society to work together and evolve together. If we don't have it, if everybody was very good in being doctors and nobody knew how to build things, where the doctors would work, right? We wouldn't have a place to live or to work, right? So we need people with different interests and different abilities, so we as a society can work and live together. And amongst those groups, you are going to have those that are superior to others intellectually in their abilities. But if they are also morally evolved, they will use their intellectual abilities to help and assist others. Like we have few, but some billionaires that do it, right? That have the moral concept of the necessity to help others, right? One a great example is Warren Buffett, right? Who is a billionaire and doesn't have any personal things that for his luxury. The only thing he has is a plane, because he lives in Omaha, and it's easier for him to fly his own plane to the places instead of taking commercial flights. His car is a Volvo of 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's got a water, it's not really passing off.
Yeah, he has a. So these are the spirits that are intellectually more capable than us, of course, because otherwise he wouldn't be where he is, but also morally evolved enough to understand the necessity and the need to help others, to use his wealth to help others, right? It's the exception nowadays, but it will be more and more the rule as we continue to evolve. You see Bill Gates donating his wealthy, most of his wealthy to charity, and you see some like that, right? Again, are you going to say that they are perfect? No, they are far from perfect. We are all imperfect spirits, so we will find many problems with them, right? But again, we have to look at the result. You judge the tree by its fruits, right? So if the fruits are good, the tree is good. Good. It's not perfect, but it's good. Okay.
832.
Yep.
Did it read 8:30?
Yes. 8:30. What was
I don't
8:30?
think it read it.
832.
Oh, yes. Thanks, Paco. We never read 8:30, Philip.
Exactly. I think it's in 8:30.
Yes. Paco just told us.
Ah.
We never did. Yeah.
830. When slavery is established in the standards and customs of a nation, are those who profit from it to blame for conforming to a system that appears to be natural to them? What is wrong is always wrong, and no amount of sophistry can change a bad deed into a good one. However, the accountability for wrongdoing is always proportional to the ability of the offenders to understand their actions. Those who profit from slavery are always guilty of violating natural law, but this guilt is relative. As slavery became rooted in the civilizations of certain nations, human beings may have taken advantage of it without seeing it as being wrong and as something that appeared to be natural to them. But once their reason became more developed and enlightened by the teachings of Christianity, and they were shown that slaves are the equal before God, their actions were no longer excusable.
This is a very interesting,
Yeah, very interesting.
very interesting, because here we can talk about ethical and morals again, right? The concept of ethical and moral, because when they say here, as slavery become rooted in civilization of certain nations, human beings may have taken advantage of it without seeing it as being wrong. So they're not morally evolved enough to recognize that slavery is wrong, and ethically is accepted by the society, so they have no problem in doing it. So how much responsible they are? They are less responsible than someone that already have the conscience that is morally wrong to own slaves, but continue doing it because society accepts it, right? You know, it's like us here, we can talk about small things, right? You know, stealing is illegal and it's morally not acceptable, right? Most of us. But some of us, if I can get away with it, we'll steal here and there small things, right? We go against our moral beliefs and we are going to be responsible for our actions, right? So here is what they are saying is, those that profit from slavery without fully understanding that it's morally wrong are less responsible than those that know that is wrong, but used and profit from it. Same thing they are doing, different consequences for those different people, right? But the first phrase here is perfect. What is wrong is always wrong, right? It goes against the natural law. It's wrong. Now, the understanding that you have and the apply, you know, how do you apply yourself to the wrong? Maybe, you know, when you are a primitive being, you're beginning of evolution, you don't know the difference from right and wrong in certain things. So we learn, we evolve by making mistakes. What a mistake is? Something that is wrong to do it, and you do it, and you recognize that is wrong, and then you do the right thing. You have no responsibility because it's your evolutionary path. Once you repeat the mistake already knowing that is wrong, that's when you become to create karma for yourself, right? Consequences. So,
What hap-
sorry?
what happens when you take slaves? Are you willing to be a slave? If you're not willing to be a slave, there's something wrong there in that thinking.
What is it again, Philip? That you're saying that if you own a slave, knowing that it's wrong to be a slave?
No, if you own a slave and you're not willing to be a slave, there's something wrong with your thinking.
Yes, you are talking about someone that doesn't know that doesn't have the conscience that owning slaves is wrong because the society accepts it, the society where you live, right? So that's the law of cause and consequence. Then if you don't recognize it, you will have an opportunity to learn about it and to change your way. And if you don't, you eventually may have to come as a slave to learn from the other side, which is different from someone that consciously know it's wrong, but take profits from it. Those are much more likely to come back as a slave in the next incarnation.
Let's not forget that the first one is like, it's wrong, period.
It's wrong, yes.
Right? They're just introducing the elephant field about it, but from the get-go, it says it's wrong, period.
Yes, but you then again you compare a 2-year-old with a 12-year-old. You don't punish them the same way, right? It's still wrong. If a 2-year-old break a vase, it's wrong.
Yeah, the first way to take the cancer from first time school, you have to tell them that's not good.
Yeah.
It doesn't know yet about God party, but you have to start know. Because having breath. In kindergarten, the first grade, they do not grasp the concept of God. But you see, teaching that, can do that.
Yeah, but you put them in timeout. Now, if a high school kid steals something from another high school kid, he risks being expelled from school. You are not going to expel one in the kindergarten because yeah. Yes. So that's the difference here. It's the same thing, right? The more you know, the more serious consequences are you going to face for your actions. I hope I answered you, Philip.
No, I just wanted you to consider that. That's all.
Oh, yeah, and you're right. It's important to consider, yes. But the consequences, again, it's not black and white. It doesn't mean that if you are a slave owner, you are going to be reincarnated as a slave in the next incarnation. Because what happened to those that own slaves right before slavery was abolished? How they are going to be reincarnated as slaves if they are no longer slaves, right? But it's not black and white. They are going to be reincarnated in difficult conditions that will make them learn and understand that is not right to abuse other human beings, right? In difficult conditions, whatever they are. Because otherwise, if there's no longer official slavery, how can you be reincarnated as a slave, right?
Yeah, I think from the beginning of slavery, if you think about like whoever began slavery should have morals that they give by who determines who's going to be a slave. Why not me or him has to be a slave?
Yeah, that in the beginning was the law of the stronger, right? Stronger one will slave the weaker one. Yeah, that's how we started. Yeah, and then you can imagine from this, it became a group that was stronger than the smaller group and slaved the smaller group, and from that it grew into.
I think my understanding that the many slaves that were brought here into the States were actually slaves in the tribal, between tribal wars in Africa.
Yes.
They were subjugated and they sold them to the Europeans.
Yeah, the slave traders in Africa were
Slaves were conquered by
again, we are all humans, regardless of where we are born, and as imperfect humans, when slavery was mostly accepted, it happened in South America, it happened here, it happened in Africa, right? So if it happened in Africa with one type of race, one was slaving others, like in the Roman Empire. The Romans were enslaving the people that they conquered, which were the same race as they were, right? Just different regions, right? Yeah. So
Even the Irish that came here, like indenture, they were like for 20 years.
yeah, exactly.
And the Continent, 20 years, but they were active slaves. And
Yes.
then at the end of the 20 years, they were kind of let go.
Yeah, and again, it's a characteristic of us as inferior beings still to impose our strength over the weak ones. It's still the same. It's still how bullies in school work today, right? Because it's our inferior human nature. We're still not.
Every nation too.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, right? Nations, stronger nations trying to bully smaller nations, right? That's what's happening. That's what's happening in the war in Europe, right? So this is a sign that we still need human laws to control all of this, because we're far from being capable of respecting the natural laws.
You would have to that Second World War was going to be the end of all that.
Yeah. Well, they said after the First World War, they saw the war to end all wars, right? Yeah, and they didn't last 20 years, and we had another one. Yeah, so fortunately, we are not there yet. Okay,
No.
now we go back to
832.
832. Yeah,
There are people who treat their slaves humanely. They think that freedom would expose them to greater poverty and deprivation. What do you think of this? They have a better understanding of their own interests. They take the same care of their cows and horses to get a better price for them at the market. They are not as guilty as those who treat them badly, but they still treat them as merchandise by depriving them of their freedom.
yeah. So that is very interesting, right? Because when we talk about slaves in general, but of course there were slave owners that were more humane than other slave owners. But the spirits are very direct here. They take the same care of their cows and horses to get a better price for them at the market. But they are not as guilty as those that treat them badly. So again,
The relative thing.
it's a relative thing. They are guilty, yes.
It's wrong, yeah.
It's wrong, so they are guilty, but they are less guilty than those that treat them badly. And again, we have to understand that everything is in the individual level, right? We have natural laws, and how we behave according to those laws is what's going to make the consequence for ourselves on an individual level, right? So those that even by those that treat their slaves humanly, there are differences between A and B, because there are subtle differences how they treat their slaves that's going to have different consequences for them, right?
Yeah, there's still the idea of superiority of over others.
Yeah.
You still think of yourself as being better or being in the right
Yeah,
to own another human being, and that's the wrong. Now there are those who commit that wrong, and on top of that, they compile it with cruelty. Those are twice as guilty. So to say.
yes, yeah. Okay. So that was slavery. We don't have time to go in that.
But something like we're exposed to greater poverty or deprivation, that's partially true in the South, because they were treated, when they treated the slave but they did not have economic opportunity, but there was a law of vagrancy. You know, people on the street not looking, not working, so that we challenge them for that, and then they would make them work under the state. Well, you understand that they were in jail, and then landowners would go to the jail and get them back to work in the land. Because now they are not, they're really pressing that.
Yeah.
But they violated the law because they haven't found a job.
When
So, you know, it's like.
when slavery finished, many workers continue to work in slavery situations because in order for them to have a house, they would have to leave. They were paid in food and house and never really made any money. So they were continue to be slaves. Yeah.
Have no skills to work to make it up there.
Because like the spirit says, they say here, progress is slow, right? So it's not by just freeing all of them that you are solving the problem. You're not. You are solving one problem, but creating other problems. And of course, we have a tendency to abuse, to take advantage anywhere we can. So now we can no longer have slaves, so let's find other ways to take advantage of these people that need to sleep and to eat. So that's where human laws come into effect to regulate these things. We need human laws, right? But the day after the slaves were freed, there were no human laws to regulate this. So abuse continued for many years, depending on the place, right? Texas didn't free the slaves immediately. It took another couple of years to free the slaves, right? So again, we have to understand that progress is slow, but it happens, right? Again, we all go back to the spiritual world, and going back to the spiritual world, we carry our responsibilities, and all those that are abusing here, they are all going back to the spiritual world, and with that they will find the consequence for their actions in the spiritual world and in future reincarnations.
This is very intrinsic to the history of the United States. That slavery is very, very intrinsic to the core of the nation. It's like all the country, and it just was free and then somehow merged. Here is quite different.
Yeah, it is still part of the problems that we face nowadays, right? The consequences of it we are still facing the consequences of it, and it's 150 years later, right? And we still have many things to fix until we can say that we no longer have.
There are forces that are for that, but this is all the forces that are fighting against it.
Again, there is always opposition to progress, right? And we'll find opposition to progress.
The lynching.
Yes.
Was just
that's recent.
Just recent.
Yeah, that's a 50-year or.
Wow.
Yeah.
You would have thought it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I was watching the Brazilian channel last week. They found a case in Brazil
Of lynching. Yeah.
slavery.
Yeah. I read that also. Yeah. So you see again, but again, it's not legal.
No,
It's not legal, right?
That's one thing, and that's what, the foundations of the nation, when you work treatment, that's something that we have to be respect, because it was fit. They didn't follow it, but it was fit.
Yeah, but the first step to in the future follow it is to have it as a law, right?
Make it a practice.
Making a practice, yeah. So we didn't get to freedom of thought and freedom of conscience. I was just going to tell you that thought is what thought is. Conscience is knowledge associated with sharing that knowledge with others. That's conscience, okay? Conscience comes with intellectual ability and thought is what you have from the beginning, right? But we'll go deeper in 2 weeks, because next Thursday we won't be here. We are going to be going to Divaldo, many of us.
The event at 6:30.
The event starts, it's at 6:30. Doors close at 7:15. So if you're not there by 7:15, you're not going to get in, even if you have a ticket.
So you should be there by 5.
You should, well, that's 5:05. You're going to wait in the door unless Luisa puts you inside.
No, 6:30.
6:30, yes, the doors open. Especially if you want your book signed by Divaldo, you need to arrive early, because he's not going to sign the books after the lecture. Okay, so we'll be back in a couple of weeks with the freedom of thought and freedom of conscience. This Saturday we have a lecture by Peter Hayes on the United States Spiritist Federation, but he never sent what he was going to talk. It's a last minute change, so I don't know what he's going to talk about. But this Saturday, 11 a.m. Spirituality, psychology and spirituality, the weekly program that Jussara is having on the study of the books of Joanna de Angelis. Starting tomorrow, it's at 7 p.m. because of our time change. Okay, so it changes to 7 p.m. Psychology and spirituality from tomorrow on. Fridays at 7 p.m. from now on. Okay, and this Sunday, very important, we start the study of the Medium's book. So if those are interested in studying the Medium's book, we start again this Sunday, first class of the Medium's book that Elmo is going to present the introduction to us, right? It's a long introduction, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be more than one. So.
You will be more than one Sunday in the introduction, yeah. It's online, 11 a.m. through our Zoom. Yeah. Okay. All right. Carol, can you do our final prayer?
Sure. Thank you very much, John. Thank you, Elmo. Thank you, everyone. Thank you also, Philip, for reading. Infinite Creator and Divine Providence, we are grateful to be together again for our studies of the Spirit's Book, Chapter 10, Freedom, the Law of Freedom. There is no absolute freedom if you live in society. We should try to balance our family life and our life in the outer world with some transparency there. Once we are perfect spirits, we will have absolute freedom by completely aligning with the natural laws, which are God's laws. Slavery violates God's law. No one can be property of another. There is cause and consequence. Changes do gradually occur regarding societal laws and its moral advancement. Purity and freedom exists within the eternal spirit. We advance slowly. We need patience and resignation when there is resistance to change, which we are feeling at this time in our outer world. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors, the good spirits, the helpers, the healers for guiding and inspiring us. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us and with our loved ones as well. We pray for inner peace, grounding, tranquility, and world peace. And we especially pray for those who are suffering in the physical world, and indeed also in the spiritual world. We pray for SGNY and all the Spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, expand, and be completely protected. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. May we go forth and remind ourselves to be beacons of light. Go forth now in love, light, and peace, and through charity. So be it.